Hello everybody, and welcome to our webinar on startup scouting and startup management within the innovation process. My name is Mike Durst. I'm the founder and CEO of ITONICS. We're a company founded in 2009, and we are providing software solutions, collaborative software solutions, and consulting services around the front end of innovation and all the activities and processes in this very important phase of the corporate core activities. So why are startups actually so relevant these days? When we look at innovation, we see 5 core activities and processes companies should do to be in front of the competition. Number 1 is environmental scanning. Understand your corporate environment, understand what's going on with the competition. And here, first of all, we see startups being very relevant because these guys are faster than you are, these guys are more risk-taking than corporates are, and these guys are mostly more aggressive than a corporate could ever be because they don't stick to any rules. They identify consumer needs, for example, and they find quick answers to that, which is far more complicated and let's say far more integrated within an existing corporate. And number 2 is the interpretation and the evaluation and the interlinkage, the connection of all these activities in your corporate environment. If this is trends, if this is new technologies, if this is, for example, patents of competitors or articles published by startups, for example. So connecting this knowledge and interpreting this knowledge and understanding what this means to your existing core business, what this means to the needs of your consumers, of your customers, for example, that is a second highly important step. Number 3 in the innovation process is the identification of opportunity spaces, as we call it. To identify, maybe using scenario technique, maybe using the interlinked trends and technologies and their evaluation for your business to understand where are the opportunities for now, for the near future, and maybe for the next 3, 5, or even 10 years. And to describe these opportunities and to figure out what kind of impact do these opportunities have for your existing core business right now, and maybe for new business to be created in the future. And then number 4, I'm sorry. We see the classic ideation process. This could be a collaborative open ideation, for example. This could be closed ideation. This could be ideation targeted to a small group of experts or targeted to all the employees in a large organization, or even including your existing customer base and new customers, your supplier base, all these stakeholders within your organization and outside of that organization. And then number 5 is innovation road mapping, at least in our point of view, to plan your innovation pipeline and manage your innovation portfolio very actively and ongoing, and have a portfolio that includes quick wins, a portfolio that includes midterm investments, and a portfolio that has a view on the long term as well, to be sure that your organization survives, and of course to be sure that your organization is leading the pack when it comes to new products, new services, and new business models. And so we see that startup scouting and the understanding of the activities of startups around the globe play a major role in all of these 5 activities. And I would just start with the environmental scanning. So in the classic understanding, as we have it as well, we see that the understanding of trends, of if it's consumer trends or if it's technology trends, for example, is highly important to identify opportunities for the organization's future. But what you could do, of course, if you're a bit lazy, you could look what startups are doing and how they do it and why they do it, and just understand that these guys basically do the job for you. Because these guys normally are very close to certain markets, they are very close to consumers, but even in B2B, they are quite close to the core business because it's very small organizations. Oftentimes, startups are founded by people who have a lot of experience in a certain industry, who identified a certain weak spot, who identified a space where business can be made, and they just try it out. They found a company, they pick up some money or not, maybe bootstrap it, but definitely they have found something they believe in, and this belief must be so strong that they decided to found a company. So if you understand what they believe in and why they believe that there's business to be made, you, with your brand, with your power, with your market access, can of course pick up this understanding and make something out of it, no doubt about that. But first of all, you need to understand, what are these guys doing? Why are they doing that? And are they playing a major role, or could they play a major role in actually my core business? Or is it an adjacent business? Is it something that is around me? And that is where we see startups playing a very important role in the environmental scanning process. Secondly, when it comes to understanding how important a certain technology is, how important a certain business model, for example, is, it's actually quite interesting to look at where does the money go. So where do VCs or banks or even large corporations invest their money? The more money flows in a certain direction, the more money a certain group of startups, a certain category of startups gather and pull together, the more interesting this space could be, and the more important it might be to look at that space and understand what's going on. And even if there is a new space coming up, or a space where there's lots of chaos going on, like in cryptocurrencies, for example, it's still important to understand who of these maybe hundreds of players who are in that pond actually collect the money, understand the business, and do something that is significant, do something that is important and that could really change the, let's say, business reality we look at right now. And then phase number 3, when it comes to identifying opportunity spaces and defining opportunity spaces, here again startups are important to understand actually how do they, for example, go to market? How do they speak to their target group? How do they attack a certain market, if it's an existing market, for example? Do they have pilots going on? Can we take a look at these pilots, test out what they're doing, figure out if their actually business model is sustainable, or if it's more, let's say, playing around with a minimal viable product, for example. But here again, the inspirations you need to define a certain opportunity space, that is oftentimes coming from startups. But for that, you need to really understand, how do these guys do it? What is their impact? And what is the potential they have? When it comes to ideation, of course, it's quite obvious. We oftentimes, or most of the times, work with inspirations to spur ideation. So in our theory, basically, it's not about the overall amount of ideas you collect from your co-workers, from your suppliers, from your customers, it's from your partners. It's much more about the quality of the ideas you collect and the quality of the business models you create, the quality of the concepts, the business concepts you create, if it's new products, if it's product enhancements, if it's new services or service enhancements. And to get quality into the ideation process, it's highly important to get a lot of inspiration and a lot of knowledge into that process. And an important piece in the last, what we see about 2 or 3 years, is that you throw relevant startups into that process and you show people who basically think of ideas and create new concepts, hey, don't you want to look at that startup first? Don't you want to look at that space first? Or maybe visit them, talk to them, understand what they're doing? Because actually that's very close to what you are just describing down here. So actually it's quite obvious that in the ideation process, where a lot of creativity and a lot of complexity actually is happening, let's say a solid startup scouting up front, a solid connection of these startups to trends, to technologies, to your core business, and then using these to, let's say, on the one hand, spur innovation, to let's say activate more creativity, and on the other hand to be much more on point when it comes to the big ideas, when it comes to the big concepts that really could help change the existing business or take the existing business into the next level, let's say. And then step number 5, the innovation road mapping, of course. What we oftentimes see is that companies create their innovation portfolios and they manage them quite well, and they create innovation roadmaps, of course, where they basically, on the one hand, do backcasting, on the other hand, connect all the dots and then figure out how long it would take to get a certain product to the market, what kind of efforts are needed, what kind of resources, what kind of markets they speak to, for example, what kind of business platforms are required, and what kind of technologies you need to own or you need to buy in to build a certain service or product. or business model, that this is oftentimes quite static. So roadmaps are created. Business units look at these roadmaps or define their own. Then this is aggregated and within meetings, for example, with the corporate technology or corporate strategy, this is discussed, budgets are defined, and then go ahead and do it. But we oftentimes miss a certain level of agility. We oftentimes don't see a certain level, let's say, of aggressiveness in managing these innovation roadmaps and managing the innovation portfolios. And again, here, having these startups basically around your initiatives, around your, if it's a digitization initiative, if it's an initiative to create new service businesses, whatever it is, let's say on a continuous level, let's say feeding in new information like, look at these guys. Hey, by the way, these guys, they found something in the space of smart parking, for example. These guys over there found something in smart home, which actually could speak to the initiative you already started and could help you in a better understanding of what you're working on right now, and let's say helping you to be more agile and to be more, let's say, market-driven and customer-driven than you would be in just looking at your roadmap and being like, all right, we're on track here, that's fine, but we basically don't look at the company's outsides anymore because we decided we'll do that. So we have this initiative, let's implement now. We got 3 years to go or 2 years to go. And to get more agility in there, to get more flexibility in there, we see it as highly important to have a solid startup scouting process that even feeds into these kinds of activities there. So when we oftentimes have the question, so how do we monitor startups? Actually, there's a couple of ways to do that. So first of all, there's a lot of services out there right now. There are startups themselves who basically provide services in terms of, let me scout startups for you. So it's some are based on so-called artificial intelligence. Let's see if that's really true and really works. Others just basically gather information all around the globe and then try to categorize that information and visualize that information. We are working with a lot of partners there and have integrated their data into our technology and trend radar tool, which basically then generates a startup radar. Same as for our ideation module, same as for the opportunity spaces and for the portfolio and road mapping, where we basically use our enterprise innovation platform as an aggregator for all these service providers out there providing this kind of information. And what we do is basically we connect that data to trends, to technologies, and to the core business you're working on more or less automatically. Number two is, of course, you create your network where you send people to hackathons, to events, to meetings, to South by Southwest, to the CES, and maybe even to CeBIT. I was there last week. To figure out, let's say, not only through information you get through a machine, but to have a real-life experience. What is this all about? What's happening? Here, for example, we have a little app. It's called the ITONICS Inspirator app, where you can basically you can use it as an interview app. You can create videos. You can take pictures, take down your notes, connect it to trends, connect it to technologies, connect it to other startups, and basically create your own kind of social network around this startup scouting process. And there's a couple other ways to do that, but we see these two basically as the major methods to pull in that data. And then secondly, of course, is how do you work with that data? You cannot look at 5,000 startups or 10,000 startups. It's really important to basically reduce that to the relevant, but then always be on the lookout to what's really happening out there, to the new stuff. So how do you do that? We have a collaborative evaluation methodology. That's one thing. Second thing is, of course, an automated tagging. We have a connected news feeder where basically we connect news, we connect patents, we connect scientific publications to startups and to technologies and to trends to have a fully interlinked network of all this data. With basically 2-3 clicks, you can figure out that's the 5 most important startups in this certain technology or this certain trend, for example. Or the other way around, this startup is connected to that one, and that's where the money is floating at the moment. So that's basically how we aggregate all that data and get that data into context. Because just looking at startups and just trying to figure out, All right, what are they doing? Let's visit them. Let's take a tour to the Silicon Valley, or let's take a tour to Berlin. Let's do it hipster style and just figure out what's going on there. That will not help you, let's say, to integrate startup scouting and startup monitoring in your innovation framework and within your innovation methodology. Now the big question is, of course, if you do all that, so you evaluate startups, you decide who to talk to, you decide who to dive deeper, for example, and of course you decide who not to look at, because that's important as well. You got all that up and running, you got the startup monitoring and startup scouting process integrated into your innovation framework, if you use ITONICS or not, by the way. So what's next here? How could you make even more use of these startups? We see 5 ways to innovate. Basically, number 1 is you do it yourself. So you build your next generation product, you build the next generation services, and you create your own next generation business models. That's one thing. And here, of course, you could use startups. Either you use them as let's say, inspiring item, as mentioned before, just to understand, like, let's look how they do it and just copy it. And because you have better access to certain markets, because you have a great brand and stuff like that, you basically just use these guys as an inspiration. That's, of course, a little bit not fair, but that's how business is. That will be how you use startups in the build phase. Secondly, of course, if you find a startup who has the right expertise, you don't really want to buy them because you believe in their product, because you believe you could do a much better product yourself, but you need these people. Buy them, use their people. That's of course an option as well. And then number 2 to innovate would be buy. So you understand that's actually the top 10 in our space here. 2 or 3 of them would be interested in a full buyout, for example, or in a full takeover, whatever it is, whatever kind of M&A format you want to look at, and you just buy them, you integrate them, you use their knowledge, you use their market access, you put your brand on top or not. That really depends on how you want to do that. Number 3 is partner. So of course you can create a partner network, and that includes startups. And you can, for example, create your own innovation centers where you invite startups to work together with them to understand how they do it. You invest in them or not. Maybe it's oftentimes better to not directly invest, to be more very open. And we have seen a lot of formats in the past. Most of them didn't really work. But now, as it seems, especially in the partnership with startups, there are a couple of formats that could work. But I believe that will be an extra discussion, let's say, what really works and what not. There's a lot of studies out there right now. Just last week one came out about the German market and how big corporates partner successfully with startups. Not many are successful there, but some really did a good job there. So it's definitely worth it to dive deeper into that one. Then number 4 is invest. Of course, you can always, as a corporate, if you have these kind of tools and methods in place, invest in certain startups, invest in certain spaces, and basically just throw money out there, and good luck that it works. But if you have this integrated innovation process, as just described before, using the right tools, looking at the right things, interconnecting all that, really figuring out what's going on there and how this is interlinked to your core business, to your maybe new business you want to look at and stuff like that, you can basically invest quite directed. You let these guys on the loose leash, just let them do it, but you help them with your money, you get a stake there, maybe not too much say there, but that's oftentimes the better option in an early phase. Let it go, Series A, Series B, something like that, and build your portfolio there, and just basically use that as a tool to have access to that kind of market, let's say. And then number 5 is, of course, co-develop. So if you understand that a startup has a certain methodology or a certain technology or a certain, let's say, business model they figured out, or a platform business, whatever it is, and you're like, actually, we're not too much interested in what you're doing right now, but we are very interested in this one thing that you guys obviously really understand. Let's partner for a co-development. We help you, you help us. You, for example, get access to our resources when it comes to laboratories, when it comes to patent attorneys and stuff like that. And in return, basically, we understand how you did that, how you do that. And basically, from this kind of co-development, everybody could could be, let's say, happy ever after. So that's basically the 5 ways we see how corporates innovate: build, buy, partner, invest, or co-develop. There might be more, but if you basically reduce it to those 5, you should be quite okay. And then to repeat that again, when you look at the innovation process, you look at these 5 ways to innovate, and you look at what I just tried to describe, how to integrate startups and all these activities there. That's basically how we see a successful startup scouting, startup monitoring, and startup management could and should work. What we do at ITONICS to support our clients with these activities, I mentioned it before, we support, first of all these activities on a collaborative online platform, an enterprise innovation platform, software as a service or cloud based. We integrate a lot of data streams and data flows. We bring that together. We have quite some, let's say, artificial intelligence built in there to basically make that job easier and faster and slicker. And basically, of course, it's a huge knowledge base that is created in a very short time, and it allows everybody in a corporation to make use of that knowledge and to integrate it. Either you want to improve your basically logistics process, you want to look at new opportunities in a certain market, you want to come up with a new service model for a certain product line. Whatever you want to do in terms of innovation, we support these activities and we integrate startups into that process in, at least I would say, quite a slick way. And I'm more than happy to have a deeper conversation, to take a deeper look at our tools, what they exactly do, how it works, and basically get you a demo, get you a system out there to play around with. And wish you all the best. I hope this was helpful. I hope it was a little bit of fun, and hope to see you next time, and hope to see you soon face to face. Thank you very much. My name is Mike Durst, and have a good day.